let's kick this off. Welcome to the Mural Backstage Pass. My name is Emilia and I'm the Learning Experience Lead for Mural. And my co-host today is Daniel Miseli, Content Specialist for the Customer Experience team. Hi Daniel, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well, happy to be here.
Great, thank you for joining. And for the next 60 minutes, we'll take you behind the scenes of a team working session. We encourage you to use the chat and Q&A channels to offer comments and ask questions as we go. And in fact, let's have those of you in the audience find that chat box in Zoom and type in where you are calling in from today. We already got started a little bit with the ones who came here early, but if you just joined the call, feel free to share your location in the chat. Myself, I'm calling in from Buenos Aires, and my colleague Daniel is placed in Berlin right now. So our goal with today's session is to help you gain confidence in using Mural in a variety of use cases. With Mural Backstage Pass, we broadcast the work as it happens in real time. And we hope that this inspires you to use your facilitation superpowers in new ways with your team. And to help you get the most from today's session, Daniel and I will call attention to the methods, Mural features, and best remote collaboration practices. And today we also have two very special guests with us who also happens to be experts on mind mapping, the topic of today's session. Joran Oppelt is an international speaker, author, creativity coach, facilitator, and consultant director of creativity and innovation at RIDG, which stands for Royal Innovation Design Group. Hi, Joran. Thank you for joining today.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Cool. And Nuno Sobrino, who's an IDOU certified advanced design thinker, facilitator, and trainer, who's helping organizations and people transform for the better through design thinking in person and remote. Welcome, Nuno. How's your week been?
Hello, everyone, and it's great to be here in mind mapping with the team that is participating in this session.
Cool, and thank you everyone for joining today. So mind mapping is a topic that I'm very excited about, and while preparing for this session, I actually remember the first time I was introduced to the technique. So when I was 14, my mom actually brought me to a learning conference to learn about new study techniques, and that's where I was introduced to mind mapping for the first time as a way to structure information and also improve learning retention, which apparently was something that my mom thought that I needed at that point. But I'm very happy that she did so, because it was something that I could continue to use throughout my university studies, and maybe something that also sparked my interest in methodology and collaboration pretty early on. So the challenges that we're here to kind of look at today is that teams need a way to structure information and clarifying their thoughts. So what we're going to look at are different ways that teams can use mind mapping to reflect, learn, plan, present, and brainstorm together. And as most of you probably know, mind mapping is a way that you can map out and visualize different types of information. The origins of mind mapping can be traced back to the ancient Greece, but many famous thinkers throughout history has also been noted for using an organic visual way of taking notes, such as Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Marie Curie, and Edison. So we're in good company here today. And before we get into the next topics for our session, we're going to start with using mind mapping for personal presentations. So I'm going to hand it over to Daniel to facilitate the warm-up activity with us.
All right, thank you, Emilia. So the idea of this activity is there are sticky notes where it says your name. We're going to put our name. And thinking about our name, we're going to come up with 5 associations that would describe anything, the first thing that comes up in your mind. And from those associations, about 3 to 4 things outside of those sticky notes. So if you just select, I'm going to put my name here, and Daniel. Thank you for putting the timer, Emilia. We have 10 minutes to do this activity. And if I select the C key and just drag out, I can go ahead and select what the next element will be. So I'm going to select another circle sticky note. So I am a performer. Let me see, Daniel, content specialist. What's first things that come into your mind without thinking too much about it? Plant lover. What else? Sustainability enthusiast.
And here we also see how Daniel is using the shortcuts to draw new connections and nodes on the mind maps quickly. So could you tell us a little bit about how you just did that?
Yeah, okay, so if you just select the C key and just drag it out from a sticky note or any kind of element and drag it outwards, you'll also get a little suggestion about what you want to be the next. So I don't have to do a circle. I could do a diamond, for example, but just for, and I could even go ahead and click on the little endpoint, and I could bring up that little suggestion box again, and it will always copy your last element or sticky note.
Yeah, and this is one of the kind of hidden features or advanced features that people used to be most excited about when I do demos. So holding down the C key to click and drag to draw connections and also add the next element to your flow diagrams or mind maps quickly. And now that we introduced you to the activity, we also wanted to invite 3 volunteers from the audience to join us in the mural to brainstorm and create mind maps together with us. So if you put your name in the chat, we'll invite the first 3 ones who respond to join us in the mural. Okay, I think we have 3 volunteers here already, so I'm gonna generate a visitor link and share it with you. And we're going to share the link with the rest of you afterwards as well. So if you want to brainstorm along with us, you can also start a mural on the side. So it seems like the first ones to respond here were Andrea, David, and Julia. So welcome into the mural with us to brainstorm and create mind maps for your personal presentations. I wish we could have everyone in the mural, but unfortunately, as you probably know, we have about 44 people on the call right now. So with 40 people, it would be pretty crazy with all the cursors here. So to ensure that everyone can follow the session and see what we're working on, we're keeping the number of participants to a lower number. But we're going to share the link to the mural with everyone afterwards. So that's also a general kind of facilitation tip that we like to share. People often ask us how many people is optimal for collaborating in a session. And just as in in-person sessions, when you have 6 people brainstorming or collaborating together, that's usually the optimal number for exchanging ideas and ensure that everyone gets to contribute and share their ideas. When you have more people than that, sharing out ideas usually takes longer time, and but you can be up to 25 people in a mural to brainstorm in a comfortable way. But after that, I would usually recommend to split up the groups into breakout groups and collaborate in different murals. And here we also have a question from Leslie. You said we click C and then add on another shape with a link. Is it C or Command or what for Windows? I've tried but can't do it. So Daniel, could you maybe go through it again, but a bit slower?
Sorry about that. If you select C and just click along, so you see I'm pressing C, I click from one element and drag outwards, then I can go ahead and put a connector. And If that's not working for you for whatever reason, you could always go to the left-hand toolbar and select where it says shapes and connectors and just drag out a connector from there. It's not as fun, but it still works. So I hope that solved your dilemma. So there's some pretty interesting mind maps here.
Yeah, but how are your mind maps doing, Joran and Nuno? What have you added so far? Would you like to share a little bit?
Yeah, I have to
Maybe
say
you can
this.
zoom in there, Daniel.
This feature, I just learned about this feature a couple days ago, the see and the click and the drag. So this is fantastic, and I've been using it a lot. Yeah, my map is mainly around roles I play, I guess. Whether it's father or facilitator, or consultant or coach or author. And then from there, I've kind of split off into, if it's author, then it's the books I've written, or if it's my role as an interfaith minister, the dialogue I've led there, the communities I've been involved in. Under father, I'd put the names of my kids there, right? Nuno?
Yeah. Well, I knew that we were going to do this type of exercise, but I didn't really want to know what would be the challenge, because mind mapping is good when it's spontaneous. So that's what I tried to do, just to focus and being locked in at this moment. And so I'm just stretching my thinking, which is one of the good things of mind mapping, and just filling out the circles, which we will be explaining in a few steps. But yeah, it's a very good exercise. It's very versatile because we can apply this type of exercise not only for working purposes, but can also for a personal purpose in our daily basis. And yeah, so it's actually really cool and it's fun to do it.
Cool. And just to give a heads up, the way that I went to go to where Nuno and Jerome were is I simply just clicked on their avatar in the bottom. So if I just double click there, I follow Nuno and I see exactly where he is, or the same I could do for anyone else that's in the mural. So just like a quick facilitation tip.
And could you tell us a little bit about where you first learned about this warm-up activity and how you can apply it as well for personal development? I thought it was pretty inspiring when you told me about it the other day.
So I'm reading a book called Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. They're from Stanford, and they apply design thinking methods to self-improvement. So one of the things the activities that they had was creating a mind map of all of the things that you enjoy, and then creating those associations. And from there, kind of can help you see like where do you want to go professionally, and if you're feeling a little bit confused, like a mind map can give you a little bit more clarity, and this idea of kind of like allowing your subconscious mind to work through. So not thinking so much about your associations, but just associating it is where like the supposedly the magic happens. And I found it to be quite interesting and helpful for sure.
Thank you. And John had a question here as well. It looks like there's 57 people in the mural at the same time, which it actually isn't. Daniel, could you maybe point towards the icon in the top of the mural and explain what that means?
There are 57 people who have been invited into this mural that are members of this mural, so they can come in whenever they want. But right now, if we look in the bottom, the icons here, these are the people that are active. So we have about, I think, 7 of us that are active in the mural. So that you'll see in the bottom, and there you'll just see who is a member of the mural. So time is up, so we should move on to the next
Yes, and I also just wanted to clarify that these 57 people have access to the mural because they're members of the room that the mural is placed in. So anyone who has access to a whole room automatically have access to all the murals inside it. So if you want to ensure transparency in your team, um, it's a good tip to invite everyone to the room because that way they can also access all the murals in that room. Let's also spend some time and just appreciate the beautiful mind map that Julia made here.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Agile.
Agile.
And there's
That's
also very
awesome.
nice, yeah, it's also Andrea made a really nice mind map up here.
There's Andrea.
Football lover,
Andrea.
graphic designer, wine enthusiast. Nice. So many things you can learn from people just by doing these quick mind maps. And then we have David down here as well, who enjoys beekeeping and sailing, and he's at home since March 8th.
I would just
I
like
love the.
to. Sorry, go, Johan.
I was just gonna say I love the little Venn diagram David made of work at home and live at work. I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That's
was
what
gonna.
we're all doing right now.
I was gonna just give a shout out to Julia because it's really interesting how she tried to be visual during the mind mapping. So sometimes an image it's much better than just simple writing. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and just to give a heads up, if you click on the toolbar right here where it says images, you can search an image and just bring it directly from here to the canvas. So if you're doing these activities, it's really easy to just pull things in and make it visual right away. Or you can just drag and drop from your device.
Exactly.
All right.
Cool. So let's move on to the next session. So we're actually going to, Johan is going to present some of his favorite mind maps using a mind map. So it's actually a mind map of mind maps, which I absolutely love that we were able to get into this session. Please take it away, Johan.
It's so meta. That's where we're going. It's so meta. It's a mind map of mind maps. Here, I'm gonna summon everyone to where I am up here in the top right corner. Yeah, thanks, Amelia. This is really cool and really fun. And you know, it wasn't until we started having conversations about mind mapping that I realized how often I use mind mapping and not really even knowing that I'm doing it. I just want to take everybody through a tour of how I've used it, and then we can have a conversation about the applications and some new ideas that might come up. The first one over here is to map a process. Here's an example of a phone script that we needed to chart not only for our voicemail greeting at the consultancy, but also from a sales perspective, if they say yes or no to something, right, then where do we need to route them? So mind mapping was really helpful to map that process out. So even if it's a to-do list or any recipe, any kind of process that you're trying to map, I encourage you to map it out visually. Second one over here is just for any kind of project. Now, outlining, right? Outlining is not mind mapping, even though you can translate it into an outline later. But anytime I'm mapping something visually as a tree or in clusters, I consider that mind mapping. So one of the recent projects we ran was our internal OKRs planning, our objective and key results. And so that started analog. That started with Sharpies and Post-its on a wall, and we clustered that, and then you can see in the black and white photo, then that turned into an outline. Then that turned into 3x5 index cards taped to the wall, and when we started to kind of sort and organize and rank and really determine some hierarchy. And then the final expression of that was a mural. We moved to an OKRs planning mural and actually ranked, measured our OKRs, and we do that every quarter now using Mural. But whether it's strategic planning or even a marketing or a business plan, you can start to cluster this, and you can even start analog before you move digital. And that'll be the theme that you'll notice. I work analog a lot. Here, the third one I added just this morning. This is this is for speed. I know there are people who can remember their dreams vividly. Even people who can participate in what's called lucid dreaming and engage in their dreams. I am the exact opposite of that. I can't remember what I dreamed. If I'm up for 3 minutes, I have forgotten what the dream was. So when you need to speed note take, mind mapping is really helpful. And this is literally the dream I had last night, or this morning, if you know how dreams work, right? This is my dream from this morning, and if this were a writing project, if I were to write a story about the dream, now that I've got the details down, there's a lot of information packed into this little mind map. For instance, I can look at this mind map now and say, oh, I was still in my bathrobe when the floor show began, and I laid my head down on the shoulder of the old woman to my left. Right? All of that level of detail is in here. And that would actually make a great opening line for the story, if it were a story I was writing. But dreams are one way to capture it, or even any kind of note-taking.
That's a really inspiring way of doing it. I actually keep a dream journal too, but I just write or kind of draw, I don't know, random images that I remember from the dream. But that's a really good tip. I'm definitely
Yeah,
gonna try that.
the longer it takes for me to write it down, the sooner it disappears in my hand. It just turns to smoke in my hands, and so I have to
Yeah,
get it done quickly.
you have to be quick.
The fourth one here is writing an actual writing project. So if you're putting together a book or even an anthology, this is an example of, here at the bottom you'll see my family has butcher paper on our dining table, and we are constantly drawing and sketching and writing stuff that we're doing. You can see that my 8-year-old wants to eat a waffle or two and go for some laps around the house. So this is how he remembers to do that. I was working on an anthology of essays and needed to map that out, and so that's what I began to do here, using color to chunk and start to connect the dots of themes and essays I was missing. This is like a substitute for a table of contents, right? You can kind of see, oh, I haven't written that part yet. I need to fill in the gaps here. And then this final example here is for one that was missing. It was a, kind of an East-West synthesis based around a talk that I had given, but it was these three kind of primary pillars. And anytime I am coaching someone on talking in front of a group or giving a presentation or developing a lecture or a keynote speech or anything like that, and everybody wants to pack so much detail in and outline it, and if you start outlining, you're just going to start writing too much stuff, right? It's just going to be too much information. So my beginning is that are these three poles, the three kind of, I call them these magnetic poles that people are going to be kind of attracted to in your talk or your presentation. And then you just start to cluster, what are the stories I can tell around that first point, that second point, that third point? What is a story that I have told in my life 100 times and I can tell it easily and I'm not going to mess it up, right? So that's just an activity to cluster these things together and keeping it simple, right? So these, whether it's a writing or a speaking project or a presentation or an actual book, that's one way to use the map. The next one, I guess well, let me go over here real quick before I get into the last one, because these examples are not mind maps. These are, let's see, can I add a...
I guess they're mind maps, but they're just structured in a slightly different way. But when I was reading up on mind maps too, like sometimes you even count like spider diagrams as mind maps. So
Right.
even if you imagine the mind map as this kind of creature that has a circle in the middle and then the legs that reach out towards the border, this can actually also be a mind map.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And in this case, what I wanted to present were circles and spirals. This is just how I think. It's how my brain works. I don't work in boxes, it's got to be fluid. And so when it came time for us to map our customer experience journey at Ridge, we took out the Sharpies and Post-its and we started creating a spiral on the table. So you see the pink is the internal operational journey and the blue are the external client touch points. And we mapped that journey on a glass top table. And then we were able to outline it later. The other thing is whenever I have to unscramble words, I always, instead of thinking linearly and having dotted lines, I always write the letters in a circle. And my brain then goes in a circular pattern and crosses the lines and connects the dots, and I'm able to see the word. Can you see the word? Do you know what the word is?
Yes.
That needs to be unscrambled right here. Who wants to guess what it is?
Let's see what the yeah, the audience got it already. Mind mapping, everyone got it.
Mind mapping, that's it. I'm not looking at the chat.
I was like diagramming. No, mind mapping, right?
I got confused with the double M and double N.
Right. So circles and spirals. And then the last example I wanted to show was this really kind of complex project that we had, and it just required some brainstorming. I had all of this information in my head, and we needed to develop a training program for our visual facilitators. And so I needed to start out by just dumping it all out in a mind map in my sketchbook, which I did here. And you can see it's got everything from facilitator challenges like unresponsive people and the pushback to the Grove template and the graphic keyboard and the Jungian archetypes and the modes of knowing to the basics of design thinking. And it's got our facilitator toolbox and all the stuff that we use in our sessions. It's just a lot. It's a lot. And when you need to get all of that information out of your brain, right? Because the human brain is not designed to hold this information. You've got to list it out. You've got to dump it out. You sometimes need some huge sheets of paper in order to translate it all down. So that then moved into, as I realized I was running out of room on the page, that then moved into a program called Mindmeister, which I used to create the mind map. And this was really fun. It was able to color code them. I was able to drag these stems around if I needed to think, this one goes in this order and this one is prioritized over that one. Well, what I did was then I printed this out on engineering paper as engineering prints and taped it on the wall. And what I thought I had done, I thought I was at the end of the road. I thought I had designed our training program for our facilitators and I was all ready to celebrate myself. So I printed this thing out and I taped it on the wall and I brought in our talent and training manager, Jeff. And Jeff is a former school teacher. And so he took one look at my mind map and said, it's not a path. There's no level 1, there's no level 2, there's no level 3. What are the behaviors and benchmarks you want them to know, and what are they able to demonstrate at these stages? So we had to take a whole other path and took a whole other method of clotheslining the training path. And you'll see those post-its above, starting to map these up above then in a line. But I never could have gotten to the end result had I not started by just dumping my brain out onto a mind map. And that was so helpful. And that is, if there's anything I want anybody to learn today, it's that you need to start out by just dumping your brain. Empty out your bucket and shake it out and get everything out as quickly as you can. Then you can start to move the pieces around on the table. The insights from that were always start with a map, right? Always write it down, always start a list, always sketch and work visually, as we've already been talking about. But the primary learning for me around that specific project was always talk about it. If I hadn't presented that project to Jeff, I never would have found out where my missing pieces were or how things fit together or how somebody other than me with a brain and somebody who is neurologically different from me is going to encounter this information. So by talking about it and presenting it, that's where the real rich information comes from, the dialogue around the visuals. And that's it. Amelia, any questions?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, feel free to. If you have any questions for Joran about how to create mind maps or how to get the most out of them, feel free to share in the chat. So yeah, like I think like one of the things I read about mind mapping as well that I thought was really fascinating is how just like the fact that you're using visuals, but you're also kind of like using your body, you're moving while you're creating the mind maps, like all these things just help the brain create these connections that help us understand and memorize the information better as well. And there are like so many times when you start like listing out the information in a more like linear way, and but then you start kind of like structure it in a more visual way, and it all makes sense. And I also think like one thing I wrote an article for Mural about like 2 years ago or something about, as we call it, immersive presentation with Mural, which is kind of like creating a mind map in a Mural to present, kind of like we just did for this presentation. And one of the great things here as well is how you can see the connections between the different types of presentation, because when you try to present something and you create a slide deck and you have to flip through the slides in this like linear order, it's very hard to, on one, like you can't really customize the order in which things are presented, and you don't get the same kind of overview either. So it's just really fascinating how you create these new connections presenting in this way.
And I will add that we are dealing everywhere. There's no place this isn't a stigma. With this stigma of creativity and curiosity and play, the idea that those things aren't, like you said, logical or rational or linear or efficient, right? That we can start from a place of play and flow and freedom and get to the most efficient place is the primary lesson, right? But we've got to overcome that stigma of it's okay to doodle for a minute to get your brain open and flowing.
Yeah. And here we had a question from John Paddon as well. If you work in a place that is all document based, can you create a mural of documents? And that sounds like a great idea, actually. You can, one tool that I'm using to get an overview of my projects, when I'm working on a new project, I often add the files that belong to that project in a mural to create like a visual overview of what are the different working docs that we use to collaborate together. So I'm gonna take over the screen sharing anyways. Maybe I just do that right now to show how you could do that. So for example, if I have a project, like let's just put the name of the project in the middle here. And then I could I have a folder here with some PDFs that I could upload. So for example, I have this Mural 2-pager, which doesn't weigh a lot, so I can easily get it into the Mural. But you could then use a mind map to map out the different documents and resources that are included in your project, and by doing so, give your team a better overview of the different elements and different tasks that are included in this project. So you could kind of take your different documents and then you can map them to your project. So that's a really good idea. Thanks for sharing. Let me see where the chat went.
I really like that spiral circles you just showed, Joran. It's kind of, so the outside circle and the inside circle. So it's kind of joining together journey mapping and service design, as we can say that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you go like the front stage where the customers are and the journey of the customers. And then you go to in-house where the backstage and behind the scenes are. So you join everything together.
Yeah, that's how we do all our journey maps. It's all that kind of internal operational, and then there's a mirror, right? There's an effect that has for the client or the customer, and you got to map that too, because that's how you identify not only the moments that matter, right? The moments where you shine, and the moments that if they went away, everything would fall apart or change, but also the gaps, right? Oh, what's missing? Well, there's an activity here on this side, but there's nothing happening here, so what's missing, right? So both of those things can be discovered through that.
Let's take one more questions before we move into the next brainstorming activity. So James is wondering if you have a lot of information in Mural and you wanted to get it out of Mural in a more structured way, how can you do that? So one way you can do that, after you created your mind map, you can select these sticky notes and then you can right click and you can select copy as text. And then you can copy this text into any text document like Word or a sheet or an email even. But you can also click on the export button here in the top of the Mural and export your Mural as a zip folder, which will include a text document with all the text that you added in the Mural too. So this is a way that you can easily get all the information out of the Mural as well into a more structured way. I'm going to continue to answer some questions in the chat, but for the remaining part of the session, we're going to start exploring a little bit about how you can use mind map for brainstorming and ideation as well. So I'll hand it over to Nuno. Thank you for facilitating this activity with us.
Thank you, Emilia. Before I jump into a brief exercise and the step-by-step guidance, I'm just going to introduce a little bit mind mapping in terms of what is my personal perspective of the exercise. But before I start to give it to everyone, I'll just ask everyone to reply on the chat box, yes or no, if they tried already to do mind mapping or if they never tried to do mind mapping. So we can just have a glimpse of if people tried already and if people have experience. Whereas if you've done it individual or as a team. But while you reply, so I'm just going to give, and bear in mind, this is my personal perspective. So it's not rule of thumb. It's not something that it's needs to be written, you need to follow. So I think, and as Joran presented really well, each of us has their own thoughts. So this is a very divergent thinking exercise. So what works for me might not work for you. You just need to understand that you need to use the exercise and fit the needs you are looking for. Now talking about the mind mapping. So the mind mapping is, in my perspective and my experience, is usually a solo activity. So it's usually something that we do, an exercise that we do in a very early creative process stage. For example, as Joran just told 5 minutes ago, he said he used the mind mapping, but he then diverged a lot and then start converging, and he went to a brainstorming session and then he went to start working with people. But everything, the mind mapping start in a very early process. Let me just check how much time do I have. Okay. So it's a very versatile exercise, and it allows you to not only generate ideas about a challenge, but also to, like Daniel said in the beginning, to gain clarity about the topic. Sometimes what I put in the center of the mind mapping is not actually a challenge or a design challenge, but it's only a word or it's only a topic. And I do it sometimes when I feel lost, when I feel that I'm not synchronized with the project I'm dealing with. So I just start to throw ideas and to throw insights to see if something comes up. And so in the center, there's the topic. And when the topic is a design challenge, the outcome are ideas generated. And when the topic is just a word or a statement to gain clarity, usually the outcome is some guidance for us to go to the next step. Okay. So bear in mind that the first level of, like we say, and you can see in the example, so the first ring of ideas that pop up usually are very obvious or are a cliche. So what do we have to do? We need to branch out from the center and go further out. And while we branch out and go further out, we start to stretch our thinking. So this is another advantage of this exercise. While it's a divergent thinking exercise, also allows us to stretch our thoughts and to uncover ideas that at the moment are hidden. And if we didn't start to draw a mind mapping, if it's in Mural or in a piece of paper, we start to uncover those insights and those topics and those ideas. the mind mapping helps to look for patterns and clusters, because we start to diverge a lot and we start to go and uncover those hidden ideas, and then we start to make connections and to connect the dots. So it helps to look for patterns. It also helps to visualize the journey we took to actually find the solution, all the steps. So if we have, for example, 4 or 5 levels of rings, we can also see the journey we took to get there. And we can see also the structure of the idea that took us until we reached that point. So it's a very interesting exercise to visualize how the thought was born and what was the outcome of that thought. So it's very, very interesting. The last thing I wanted to just to clarify is, and don't be disappointed, is that sometimes for me, mind maps they don't work. Sometimes they work, so I get inspired, I get insights, I get ideas, but sometimes I do a mind map and it just doesn't work. I go and I try a different exercise. And the other thing is, in my personal experience, sometimes I can do a mind map and draw it in half an hour or 1 hour. And sometimes I spend 2, 3, or 4 days drawing the same mind mapping. It depends of how inspired I feel to keep doing the mind mapping, because sometimes I'm just throwing ideas and I don't feel inspired and I just stop, I just close the file I'm working in. If it's a digital file, I'll just put the sheet of paper aside and I wake up tomorrow and just, if I feel inspired, I pick it up again and keep going. So this is just what I wanted to share with you in terms of the mind mapping. Now I'm gonna jump to the Mural platform. I'm going to sum everyone. And what I'm gonna show here is just a simple exercise of a mind mapping I did last week for my dad's birthday, which is gonna be this Sunday. But I'm going to explain exactly the step-by-step guide for you to start doing mind mappings, or for those that do already, you may feel that this is connected what you usually do. So this is a challenge. So my challenge was, my dad's gonna have his birthday soon, and I didn't know exactly what to offer him. So I thought, maybe it's a good idea to draw a mind mapping to see if something comes up. And this is exactly, I'm gonna just put here the points at the same time. I'm going to explain to you. So the first step is write the challenge or the topic at the center and highlight it and circle it. So it was exactly what I did. Dad's birthday gift. I didn't know what to give him. So I thought, okay, let's put it here and do a mind mapping. The second thing, the second step is, because this is a relational map, so everything is connected, every circle is connected to the previous one and the following one, you have to start making relational connections to the main topic, and start with what Daniel and Joran just shared with us, with the first thing that comes up to your mind. So just it has to be spontaneous. There's no, you need to defer judgment here. So, and you just need to throw the first ideas that come up to your mind and thoughts. Write them and circle them down, branching out from center as you go. So that's what I did. I started to branching this first level. You don't need to number the rings. I usually do it because visually it allows me to understand at the very end how many steps I had to go through to show my idea structure. So for me, it's valuable, but you don't need to do that. And while you start to write and circle these ideas or insights, just continue to ask yourself if there's anything you can add to the map related to the main topic. So, and that's what I did. I just threw some ideas. So I wanted to, I'm not a very materialistic person. So I usually, when I give birthday gifts, I usually try to provide an experience to people. So I wanted him to have an experience, whatever it would be, something that would be useful, something that would be related to what he likes most. And there was the option to buy it with my mom at the same time. So to offer him one gift, but 2 person giving to him, and something that I really need. So I'm not going through all the details because you can see exactly what I wrote. So this is not a big mind mapping, but it's just to give you a glimpse about what was the second step. The first step is for each idea you just circle related to the main topic, you go try to spur new related ideas. And this way you start to branch out from the center further out. So that's what I did here. For each of these 5 circles of the 5 level, I just spurred new ideas related to them. And during the journey, sometimes there's one thing that can happen. And I think Joran probably had some examples on his mind map as well. Sometimes the ideas or the insights that come up, they are related to the main topic or the topic before, but they are a new cluster. They are a completely new hub that you can explore and build a mind map on top of that. And what I do usually when that happens, instead of a circle, I just put a different form. I put a square here. So, and I explain you exactly why for me this is a hub and a cluster. Because my dad is retired already and my mom still works. My dad spends a lot of time by himself at home. So he doesn't socialize much with people nowadays and with friends. And in this situation from the last 3 or 4 months with all the COVID situation, people are really locked down. So here in Portugal, we are still in with very restrictions, not as in Argentina, for example. I guess you guys are really locked down in Buenos Aires, but he spends a lot of time at home. So I think he needs to socialize more. And I don't think this is a consequence of these main topics. So for me, this is a new hub, a new cluster that I could start building a new mind mapping here. So what I do is I identify these with a different color and a different form. So I can, if I want to develop later. So, and these are the main step-by-step instructions. You just keep going until usually, and this is the step 5, until usually you stop having ideas, or if the idea is scarce or they are dwindled, or in the case of Jordan, if you have no space allowed in your sheet of paper and you can't write anymore. So you need to just stop there.
Yeah, let's try this out in the mural.
Yeah,
We're
let's.
all pretty
Okay.
excited
Yeah,
to start to brainstorming in the
just
mind
have a few
mapping
minutes.
mode as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, so those of you who joined the mural at the beginning of the session, feel free to join us to brainstorm some ideas for this mind map as well. And if someone else would like to join us to brainstorm in the mind map now at the end of the session, feel free to share your name in the chat and we can invite you to the mural as well. So tell us about the challenge or the question that we're going to brainstorm ideas for.
Yeah, so the challenge is, I think it's very familiar with everyone in the session. And the challenge that we thought was, what challenges start to arise for remote work at the moment? Because we have been in, of course, there are people that have been working remotely for a long period of time, but due to the COVID, most of people have been working for the last 3, 4, or 5 months remotely. And now the dust has settled a little bit. And we are starting to see a few challenges we start to face and that we need to find solutions for. Because in the future, nobody knows what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty in the air, but for sure, remote work is here to stay. We don't know if we're going to be working in a hybrid system or situation, but a few challenges now, they start to rise. And this is the main topic. So we're just going to start to mind mapping and brainstorming ideas and generating ideas and just make the connections.
So when you create mind maps or brainstorm, do you recommend to add the nodes right away, or do you prefer first adding kind of the ideas and then connect them afterwards?
Well, there's not a rule of thumb. I mean, usually what I do is I start to go for the first level of the ideas connected with the main topic. But sometimes what happens is, as soon as you write that idea, some new idea related to that one just pop ups in your mind. So, and you just write the second level straight away. You don't need to do all the first ring and finish those ideas in that level and then go to the second one. Just write whatever it comes up to your mind. Just bear in mind the idea that comes up. What is the connection that it's on your head? If it's with the main topic or if it's with other ideas that you already put on.
Oops, I think the challenge in the middle disappeared.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, someone created a, look, we have the Venn diagram, work at home, live at work came back. That's great.
Well, I wrote again, it's not exactly the same, but
Nice.
the same statement, but it's, yeah.
And one of my favorite tips, so now that we generated a couple of challenges around the middle here, one of my favorite ways to kind of, if you have a big group of people and you don't have time to let everyone share out individually, one way that I like to share out ideas in the mural is to do a so-called gallery walk in the mural, which I do in the following way. So I ask everyone who wants to follow me by launching the ask to be follow. Sometimes I feel like summon is a bit too interruptive because it interrupts what people were doing at the time when I launched the message. But I can ask people to follow me, and then I can kind of walk through the mural and highlight the different ideas that people have added. So here we see internet speed, mural plus Teams, turtle speed, turn off video, killing is my machine. So we see here that people already started to add, some of these are challenges, but we already started to come up with some solutions here, which is really interesting, just how the brain is kind of helped to think more quickly when we do it in this way. Overworking, sore feet and legs for standing all day, no clear boundary between work life.
That's very interesting, Emilia, just what you just said, because the mind mapping is mainly a divergent exercise. But as soon as you start to generate ideas and you start to put what comes up to your mind starts to converge in some cycles at some moment. So that's what happened just there. We are just generating ideas and then we generate solutions on top of these ideas.
Yeah.
Just real quickly, because people were having some issues typing over the challenge because I think they were clicking in the circle and then pressing the C key.
Yeah.
So that was overwriting, and so I just typed in the chat, what you need to do is press the C key first and then click over what you're trying to connect, right?
Yes, so you have to click the C key and then hold it until you start drawing the connector. So as you can see, when I hold down the C key, my cursor turns into a cross. And as long as the cross appears in the mural, that's when I can click and draw my connectors. So as soon as I stop, and I think what might happen sometimes is that you click on the element first and then you click on C, and that's when you accidentally replace the text with a C. But what you can do then is simply hit the command plus Z, and then you can kind of go back. You can also use the arrows in the top of the mural here to kind of regret what you already did in the mural.
Wonderful. So I just want to point out that we have only 2 minutes left, and it's really important for us in developing Backstage Pass to have feedback, because feedback is a gift. So could you please rate us in the chat as we're wrapping up from 1 to 10 how you felt about this Backstage Pass, and if you can include why, that would be really, really helpful for us. So from 1 to 10, how you felt about this session, and a short description as to why. Thank you so much.
And real quick before we close, I had added this little mind mapping resources oval on the right-hand side, a couple books that are available on the subject, and I encourage all the other participants who are in the mural to add resources there to that mind map so that we can follow up as well.
Cool. And I'm also, as I promised at the beginning of the session, I'm going to share the link to this mural, so you can all come in and join us here at the end. While we were still presenting and sharing, we kind of wanted you to be able to focus on the content and see all the tips that we gave as well, since when you're in the mural, you can't see what I'm demonstrating with my shared screen. But now that we're at the end, everyone are free to join, to explore the mind maps and click on the resources that we added in here as well. And what you could do with this next, so as Nuno explained before as well, you can we could run a voting session to identify which of these points are the most important ones, where we think there is more information to uncover. And then we could start an entirely new mind map, actually, around one of these topics, and continue to build it out to explore more ideas. Cool. Does anyone have any, I don't know, observations, thoughts, final words you would like to share before we end the session? And thank you so much for joining. It was really insightful. I definitely learned a lot, and it was really fun just to be collaborating with you and create these mind maps together in Mural.
Yeah, Amelia, I just want to say thank you for having me. This was a blast. I'm learning from everyone else, and just was really happy to start my day this way with an amazing team of people. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Emilia, Jordan, Daniel, just thank you for having me as well. I'm with Jordan, so I learned a lot here. It was very inspirational. I just wanted to leave a word for everyone here in the session that just embrace one of the mindsets of all these type of exercises and design thinking, which is make it. Just start with something small at home. Try to draw something in a piece of paper, and you will see this is a very, very valuable exercise and very simple to apply.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you for your feedback, for your questions.